It has been an interesting week in diplomatic relations between Nigeria and Germany. After years of negotiations, another consignment of Benin bronzes have been repatriated to Nigeria. And at the handover ceremony this week in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, the German Foreign Affairs Minister admits it was wrong to steal them and wrong to keep them. Strong words from Madame Annalena Baerbock. We'll show you the full story in our focus on the nation's capital. My guest on the program attempts to answer a few pertinent questions in this endeavor. Why are these repatriations important? What do antiquities do to our sense of nationalism and patriotism? What are these upgrades of Nigeria's 53 museums? And how do we get back the antiquities in the hands of private collectors and museums around the world? He provides some answers. And as we do every week, we have an update on the major stories from Nigeria's presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's kick off with the major stories from Nigeria's seat of power. President Muhammadu Buhari has restated the commitment of his administration to improving the welfare of officers and men of the Nigerian police force to engender effective policing by the force. President Buhari stated this today when he received the 2021 audited report and 2023 budget proposal for the Police Service Commission. The president reminded that his administration has made the welfare of police officers a priority and police reforms a sacred duty. President Muhammadu Buhari has hailed the contributions of the digital economy in driving growth, creating employment, and generating revenue for the country, particularly the auctioning of the 5G spectrum alone, which generated $547 million, advancing options for funding development. This is according to the president, who commissioned the National Shared Service Center in Abuja in the company of the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy.
Our digital economy journey has accelerated the diversification of our economy, and the second quarter report by the National Bureau of Statistics showed the extent of this growth, with the information and communication technology sector contributing an unprecedented 18.44% to the GDP. As part of these unprecedented achievements, the sector generated over $547 million United States dollars from the auctioning of the 5G spectrum alone.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, has met with President Muhammadu Buhari over issues of electoral violence, the cashless policy, and security in the nation. Mr. Gbajabiamila, who met privately with the president in his office, stated that he had a fruitful engagement with the president on the salient issues to primarily gain his perspective on them, as well as present the House position on the matters. On the ongoing controversy relating to 89.9 trillion naira stamp duty funds mismanagement, stirred by a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Gudaji Kazaure, the Speaker stated that the lawmaker is working with a team independent of the legislature and will be assisted by the House if the need arises. President Muhammadu Buhari has also launched the National Monitoring and Evaluation Platform, IMARC. President Buhari launched the project before the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House on Wednesday. The president noted that the federal government can no longer depend on its handful of monitoring and evaluation teams to oversee the vast number of infrastructure projects spread nationwide, hence the launch of the monitoring website, which is accompanying mobile app. The federal government has disclosed that the promise to complete the narrow-gauge Eastern Railway corridor before the end of the current administration is no longer feasible. The Minister of Transportation, Muazu Jaji Sambo, stated this while answering questions at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja. President Muhammadu Buhari had 2 years ago performed the groundbreaking of the 1.96 billion naira rail line project, promising that it will stimulate economic activities in the 14 states it covers. But the current Minister of Transportation, Mr. Sambo, said financing the project has become an issue.
This promise is not feasible because when the contract was approved, it was approved on the premise that 85% will be funded through foreign loan, while 15% will be the counterpart funding from the national budget. Since that approval, we have not been able to obtain the 85% foreign loan for this project.
The House of Representatives has resolved to accept representation from the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who was given an ultimatum to appear before the lawmakers on Thursday. The resolution of the House follows a letter from Mr. Emefiele citing health reasons. In his place was the Deputy Governor, Mrs. Aisha Mohammed, who briefed lawmakers on the withdrawal policy of the Apex Bank. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has signed an agreement with members of the transport unions comprising the National Union of Road Transport Workers, the National Association of Road Transport Owners, and the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria for effective logistics deployment in the 2023 general elections. Speaking at the ceremony in Abuja, the chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, notes that INEC will be needing at least 100,000 vehicles and over 4,000 boats and gunboats for the conveyance of personnel and materials in the forthcoming general elections. The signing of the agreement is coming barely 1 month after the commission met with security chiefs and heads of the transport unions in Lagos. The federal government has inaugurated an integrated satellite, codenamed DelSat-1, aimed at strengthening the country's national security apparatus. At the inauguration of the ground station of the satellite at the Defense Space Administration headquarters in Abuja, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, said the current administration is committed to fighting insecurity. Welcome back. It was a flurry of activities during the week in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Abuja. The German Minister of Foreign Affairs, Annalena Baerbock, led the German delegation repatriating 22 bronzes formerly on display at public museums in Germany for hundreds of years. Some were taken as far back as the early 19th century. The British Museum has been urged to follow the German example and return the 900 Benin bronzes in their custody. Please watch this.
The repatriation of 22 Benin bronzes to Nigeria by the German government is a mission many years in the making, culminating in the ceremonies planned here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja. To kick off the day's events, the German delegation at this roundtable discussion is led by the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs, and she restates Germany's commitment to strengthen bilateral relations with Nigeria.
We really applaud your engagement for the security of the people. This is for us, especially as the European peace order is under check by the brutal Russian war. Also, one of the examples how we've been working together internationally, standing side by side. We, as the European Union, have asked you, Nigeria, African countries, to stand at our side when our peace order is under check. And this is why we engage also with you when you have asked us to support you while your stability has been threatened, to stand at your side. And for us, and this is what I would like to underline with the visit, but also with the follow-up from my Deputy Minister, Katja Coyle, that we really would like to invest in our cooperation and friendship, because partners are only true partners if they stand with you in the difficult times. If you're there when it's going well, then everybody can be there. But partners who stand with you through difficult times, I think, are the true partners.
Both ministers go into a closed-door session, after which they hold a press conference. Topical issues are brought up for discussion, like the Reuters report, alleging that the Nigerian military is carrying out systematic abortions on women in Borno State.
There was a UK NGO in that part of Nigeria that is engaged in those activities. And so we have to look into just a full ratification, so that when this report comes about Nigerian military, just to look at the whole situation comprehensively and make sure that it's not an activities of maybe one entity that's being mixed up.
The German Minister of Foreign Affairs gives her views on the issue.
Rape is being one of the worst crimes you can do to a person and a woman, and we can see that in every war, that in every brutal conflict, like here from terrorists, but also with the Russian war on Ukraine, rape has been used as an instrument of weapon. that the question if a woman decides to have an abortion, especially after rape, is a crucial question. And for me, this is a question also as a human right, to have a right to decide as a woman by yourself to do an abortion if you have been raped or if you decide to do so.
Ms. Onyema reassures the media of Nigeria's ability to preserve the repatriated bronzes.
They were here before, and they were in excellent condition before they were taken out of this country. So it's not as if they're coming into Nigeria for the first time. They're things that we've been preserving for centuries. So I think that doesn't really arise in terms of that. But having said that, there are plans by government and indeed also private agencies to build more infrastructure to house them.
The 22 repatriated bronzes arrive at the ministry in 10 boxes, relics of an injustice ignored for centuries. There are 1,130 Benin bronzes in public museums in Germany. The ownership of those artifacts have been reverted to Nigeria, and through Germany's Lighthouse project, their return is being coordinated.
So she comes back to where she belongs, in Nigeria.
As the official handover ceremony begins, Nigeria's Minister for Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, calls on other governments and museums across the world to follow the example set by the German government and return the artifacts in their custody, particularly the British Museum.
We call on all other nations, institutions, museums and private collectors still holding on to Nigerian antiquities to release them. Particularly, we call on the British Museum to release the more than 900 Benin bronzes in its hold. A year has rolled by since Nigeria submitted an official letter to the British Museum demanding the return of Nigerian antiquities in this museum. Yet there has been no reply of any kind. I visited in July this year, hoping that the success recorded with the Germans would nudge the British Museum to do what is right. But I met a brick wall. The British Museum and all those holding on to our artifacts must understand that repatriation is a cause which time has come. They must also understand that many of these cultural objects are not mere art to us, but the true essence of our being. These artifacts are not mere decorative works, but our culture and heritage. They belong here and not anywhere else.
For the German Minister of Foreign Affairs, this repatriation is to right a wrong that has lasted for hundreds of years.
We are here to right a wrong. Officials from my country once bought the bronzes knowing that they had been robbed and stolen. After that, we ignored that Nigeria's plea to return them for a very long time. It was wrong to take them, but it was also wrong to keep them. This is a story of European colonialism. It is a story in which our country played a dark role, causing tremendous suffering in different parts of Africa. The return of the bronzes today is therefore a crucial step towards addressing this chapter in the way that it should be addressed. Openly, frankly, with a willingness to critically assess one's own activities.
Bilateral relations between Nigeria and Germany received a boost with the repatriation of these 22 billion bronzes to Nigeria from Germany. The bronzes, still in public museums in Germany, are there on loan. There are still questions about Nigerian antiquities in the hands of private collectors and private museums in Germany and around the world. What efforts are in place to ensure they are repatriated? There is also the larger conversation urging former colonial masters to reassess their colonial histories and offer reparations. In the meantime, the Nigerian government hopes other countries will follow this German example and return Nigeria's antiquities to the Nigerian government.
My guest on the program is Professor Abba Isa Tijani, a Nigerian professor of museology and anthropology. He's also the Director General of Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments. We talked about these museum upgrades, the question of reparations, engaging the younger generation, and propagating a sense of nationhood using Nigeria's antiquities. We also tried to get to those antiquities in the hands of private collectors. Please watch this. Professor Tijani, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Quite a busy week you've had.
Absolutely.
I was watching. Very interesting, successful week. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All the questions that people, of course, you were at the press conference, so you saw all those questions that kept coming up.
Yes.
These questions, let's see if we can run through a few of them.
Yeah.
We did ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs about the capability of the museums in Nigeria to house these antiquities and keep them preserved. Because we see when they're doing it abroad, they wear gloves, there's a particular temperature, you have people guarding it to make sure that no one steals it and puts a fake in there. And he responded, as did the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, that, look, we're doing a lot of renovations with museums across the country, especially in Benin. And we even heard Mr. Lai Mohammed said the plan is to turn Benin into a cultural hub, a place where people come to for tourism and things like that. Let's hear from you. You're in charge of all the museums in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
What sort of upgrades have happened so far to ensure that these antiquities that are being repatriated are preserved properly?
In the first place, I want to say that the state of museums, when I came in as the Director General 2 years ago, has not been really the one we expect in any museums at any level. So I took it upon myself as a professional to see that we upgrade our museums to the standard that we can be proud of. And fortunately, we've been able to upgrade 8 museums to international standard last year, and this year we've been able to upgrade 9 museums. So you can see that we have a number of museums that are being upgraded to international standard, and we have 53 across the country. And in case of repatriation, we've taken it upon ourselves to see that the National Museum Benin City is expanded so that the existing galleries and storage facilities are upgraded and expanded to accommodate more objects that are returned. The temperature, the humidity, relative humidity, and everything is controlled to the level that the objects will be safe, but also ensuring that the security of the object is paramount, so that objects that are displayed in a way that they cannot be easily accessed by anybody that is coming in. And also, they are under lock and key, and security guards are there always to guard the objects as well.
How do you get Nigerians to understand the importance of our antiquities and how this is our story and why this is important to have in this country as part of our culture?
That's why we are digitizing our objects, to see that we have a virtual exhibition of these objects, and also interactive, because our young generations are more into handling their devices. So we want to make sure that we reach out to them through our own apps that we want to come up with, so that they will be able to, at the comfort of their home, they will be able to see and appreciate our cultural heritage. And that will attract them to come to the museums to see the actual objects as well.
A lot of Nigeria's history, especially when it comes to arts and antiquities, a lot of our history and our relics have been, they weren't even taught. People don't even know. We just see a bronze and we can say, oh, this is a Benin bronze, but we don't know the stories behind these things. How are you going to bridge that gap?
So we have to now accompany these objects with some interactive, displays to see, or pictorial displays to see that these objects are used for this and that purpose. So instead of taking lengthy text to explain, we want to explain them through interactive ways. So that is how we want to engage the visitor, to see that he has to have an experience of engagement in the exhibition, not just going through boring displays of objects.
These are relics of an injustice. that was done to Nigeria many years ago. And for many Nigerians, while we're excited about seeing these antiquities returned, there's also the question about, the injustice that was done. These things that were stolen from us and used to make money around the world, are we going to get any reparations for that? Is there any plans to look at things in that direction at all? Or are we just glad that they returned it? We're taking what we can.
We have come a long way. At some point during the first act of 1977, if you may recall, Nigeria made efforts to see that the symbol that was used for the first act 77 of Queen Edea was requested from the British Museum, but they refused. So since that time, Nigeria has been making efforts to see that these objects are repatriated, but was not successful. We are looking at now, at this level, is that we are going to go into collaboration in many areas of benefit to us. They are going to help us in building new museums, support infrastructure development in the museum, institution, something that is beneficial to us. And I believe that when we do this, it's more than saying that please pay a certain amount for us, which we don't know how it's going to end up. But when we see that there is, contribution and support in infrastructural development, research, joint exhibitions and the rest, I think we will benefit more. And then we'll talk of other things in the future.
Let's talk a bit about, these particular antiquities that have been returned, they are from public museums. I got an education in that because we've not been able to address the antiquities that are in the hands of private collectors and private museums. And I'm not just talking about in Germany, I'm talking about around the world. What efforts are being made in that direction and how much progress has been made to ensure their repatriation?
What happens in those advanced countries is you now collaborate with philanthropies to see how can philanthropies fund the repatriation of these objects. So if these individuals are willing to give these objects on a token, then, our own philanthropies can, for example, in Nigeria, benefit from tax, relief and so on. So when they put in this money in getting or paying for these objects to be returned to Nigeria, then they can get tax relief from Nigeria, for example, as to the value of the amounts they put in.
When are we coming to Benin to look at these upgraded museums that are housing our repatriated antiquities? When is it going to be open to the public?
I want to commit these repatriated objects for exhibition, to tell Nigerians that these objects that are truly returning are physically here, then they are on exhibition. We will come up. In the first quarter, we want to make sure we do that.
First quarter of 2023?
Yes.
I'll hold you to that.
Yes.
I can hold you to that.
Everybody has a culture, has a history, an identity. And the more we have this, the more it will bring about, unity and peace among ourselves. When you respect your own culture, you respect the cultures of others, then there is going to be harmony and unity among ourselves. That is our pride in museums. That's what we want to portray to Nigerians.
Well, Professor Tijani, you have a lot of work ahead of you, but thank you very much for being with us on Dateline Abuja, and good luck with the work that you do.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thanks to Professor Tijani and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Part of the education people from my generation and above were privileged to enjoy right here in Nigeria was the concept of nationhood, an idea that we owned this country and had the duty as citizens to love and care for it. Sadly, a lot of that has not been transmitted to the recent generations, and this is largely responsible for what many have described as a shift in our society's value systems. I agree. Having symbols that continually remind you of your heritage creates a sense of pride in your origins and an intense curiosity and respect for the culture of others. The export of antiquities is now heavily controlled by law in almost all countries and by the 1970 UNESCO Convention. But sadly, the trade in illicit antiquities continue. Hopefully, modern governments follow this German example by repatriating and rejecting any new antiquities smuggled out of Nigeria. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screens. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.